Let us start the session. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amanda. Welcome to Topan Aquarius first webinar. And with me today is Jibin and Pravin. Jibin is the director of the Digital Government Transformation team. He leads the team that works closely with our public sector customers in their digital transformation journeys in terms of service design, digital services, cloud computing, and cyber security. He has been in this industry for, say, 25 years. Not telling you this to count his age, okay? But I'm telling you this, I'm letting you know that you are in good hands. He has probably seen it all, so you can feel free to ask him any questions that you may have, and hopefully he has any secret kung fu to share with you. And on the turntable today, we have our demo jockey, DJ Praveen. He is one of our hardcore architects from our product development group, and he is known internally as our integration expert. Praveen has a strong background in the banking sector, where security is paramount, and is a solid addition to our R&D team. So I trust that you are in good hands today. And although it is our first ever webinar, we are not new to this. We have been regularly conducting face-to-face seminars in the past few years, but the COVID situation has given us the opportunity to try something different and start a series of webinars to reach out to you, our customers and friends in the industry. So thank you for taking time out today to join us. And before we begin, let me explain how we're going to conduct the webinar. Oh no. Firstly, if you haven't realized, this is a live webinar and we'll be recording the session. We intend to publicly release the recording on our YouTube channel. So if you have any colleagues that are unable to make it for this live session, do point them to our YouTube channel. You can also find similar content over there, so do head over to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. During the webinar, we encourage you to ask questions. You can do so using the chat window on the right. We will try to answer as many questions as possible during the webinar. If not, we'll reach out to you offline. Lastly, if you wish to invite us to present to your team or have any questions after this seminar, do reach out to us at info@topanaquaria.com. So today's session will be on securing integration in the public cloud. Without further ado, let me hand over the session to Jibin. Jibin?
All right. Thank you, Amanda. This is Jibin speaking. So I'll be taking the next part of the webinar. Right. Before I begin, let's take a look at attendees. And we have quite a lot of new friends and old acquaintances on board with us today. So yeah, good afternoon to all of you. So I understand some of you will be very familiar with us, but for the people that are just kind of new to us, maybe just 1 minute introduction to who is Topan Aquaria and then what do we do. So we are actually established in 1998, so 20 over years old. So we are not new. In fact, pretty established in the living digital government for Singapore and also countries around the world. We have 4 global offices, headquarters in Singapore. Have other offices in China, Indonesia, and Brunei. So we are 280 plus strong, S10, EPPU certified. All this means that we can do any project that's from 100,000 all the way to 30 over million. So all this is not a problem. Okay, we are actually known in the industry for building great apps. Yeah. So and we are actually very challenged for those very high transactional volume apps. But of late, we also branching off to other topics such as building microservices, then doing machine learning, doing DevSecOps, and so on and so forth. So I know it's just after lunch, so there's one little exercise for all of you. So we're going to start a little poll. I'm going to turn it on now. Okay. So on your right-hand side of the window, you will see this poll that pops up. So you see chat, poll, handout. So poll, if you click on poll, you see that appearing. And these are a few topics that we are really very into nowadays. So you have microservices, DevSecOps, machine learning, biometrics. Yep. Then also, of course, infrastructure as code. Quite an interesting topic to begin with. So I know, yeah, lunch after lunch, pick something that you're really interested in. Hope that we will present in the next webinar, and then this is a good feedback from the crowd, and also take other sources from our customers as well. Then we'll plan our strategy for subsequent webinars. All right. Wow. Okay. Interestingly, a lot of people choose microservices. What is one of our favorite topics? I presented in a couple of face-to-face seminars before. Yeah, maybe you can do it again. Yeah, sometime in the near future. Okay. Right. Now back to the presentation proper. And the backstory for today's topic, securing integration in the public cloud, really happens, not today, of course, happens in 2018. So in 2018, something very important was announced in the government space, right? If you've been to this event called Stack, right? GovTech Stack event, and it's supposed to actually have one at the first half of this year, but because of COVID-19, it's kind of shifted to the second half. I think end of the year, if I'm not wrong, December time frame. So in 2018, there was this Stack X event, and then government actually made a very quite a few important announcements. So one of them is actually the bold move. They say is that government says in the future, in the next 5 years, they are going to move majority of the workload from the traditional data centers and their private government cloud to the public cloud. That's pretty big. So if you have been in the government sector for the last 20 over 30 years, you will know that this is very unconventional, because previously it was more of there was no cloud first strategy, but now the whole mindset has actually changed. So fantastic news for vendors like us, and also I'm sure for the government agencies as well, because now we have access to very advanced tools like well, you have Kubernetes, you have IoT, you have big data, AI and stuff. Yeah. And I think it's timely, because if you look at the UN ranking for Singapore for the past, say, decade, we used to be like number one, like Singapore likes to be number one in many things. And we used to be number one for eGov as well. But even as late as 2004, yeah, we are actually ranked number third ranking in the UN ranking. And by 2018, we are ranked 7, kind of shocking for Singapore. So I think embracing public cloud would help, definitely, much faster pace access to newer technologies, and of course, making it more cost effective. And with this new technology, by right, we should be very empowered, able to make Singapore great again, and we should be living happily ever after. But as we all know, right, life is always not so simple, and with great powers comes great responsibility, like what they always say. And we have to make all this thing work, not in the usual manner, because yeah, what works? For example, right, what works in the public sector, or not even in the commercial sector, will not work for Singapore government, because we have our own policies, compliances, and regulations to follow. Okay. So what compliances are we talking about? So let's take a look at something that's typical of any government tender. So government tender typically consists of a lot of technical compliance, by the way. So this is only one small extract of it. So typically the compliance ranges from between 30 over to 100 over pages, technical compliances. So it's just one small aspect of it. And this is very specific to what we are talking about today, integration. So it says that there is a need for an integration tier, and it performs things like authentication, authorization for incoming connections. And you need to do things like payload inspection, so they can only allow authorized payload to go forward. A lot of words, but what does it mean? Okay, so visually, okay, this I'm trying to depict what does it mean visually. So this is a very high level overview of a standard architecture for government systems, right? Okay, some of you familiar, not familiar. Those not familiar, again, drop us a note, then we can talk about it. When you talk about integration tier, we are referring to this part of the diagram. Okay, so there's this integration layer that we need to put across. So what does this layer do? So integrate with things. So what things do we typically integrate with? Okay, on the internet side, public-facing side, we typically integrate with things like SingPass, CorpPass for authentication, MyInfo if you want to make it easy to fill forms, payment if you want to collect money. Also, most of the time, government collect money. Sometimes we collect money from them, but most of the time we actually pay them something. And then, of course, other cloud services. That's on the internet side. How about the intranet side? Of course, if you have done any enterprise projects for government systems, you will realize that, well, you really need to integrate with a lot of other systems. And that's not only limited to internal within the organization. You are also you very frequently integrate with systems outside the organization, other external agencies as well. That's not the end. There's still one more thing to go. We need to integrate from internet to intranet, because sometimes information data comes in from the internet, you need to pass it over. Sometimes you have confirmation approvals for the intranet side, you need to pass over those data as well. So this is what we talked about visually. So kind of make it clearer for those who are not in the domain. So when you look at these kind of requirements, all right, so what kind of products can support these integration? So two products come to mind. First, an API gateway. Next, a SAML gateway. SAML gateway for your SingPass, CorpPass authentication. Right. When we look at projects, we realize that there are many products that actually exist in these two categories, especially the API gateway. Many projects, many products. We have products that is open source. We have products that is commercial. Of course, we also have cloud native products since we open up to the public cloud. The challenge is, right, again, what I mentioned earlier, the challenge is, how do they comply to government policies? These are just generic products they built for everyone. So let's take a look at the compliance again, more detail. The first compliance that we talked about, we mentioned just now, authentication. So what does it mean? Simply means able to identify the caller of the API. We are looking at API gateways. Three common methods of authentication. One, basic authentication. Okay. What it does is really quite simple. It has you take the user ID, you take the password, you encode it in base 64, and then you append it to the HTTP request, and you send it. Okay. So there will be other things you need to do as well, but this is pretty basic. Well, you think, hey, this is not very secure, right? You're somewhat right. That's why it's called basic authentication. But again, still useful in say trusted environment or internal networks where you say you have IoT devices. You want to keep things simple. So has to be supported. Next, of course, since that is not so fantastic, people have evolved. Say, hey, why not use API keys? Why don't you generate keys uniquely for each user? So that works for a while as well, and probably still used by some systems today, but not fantastic, because now user is fixed to one API key. All users are fixed to one API key. You can't change. Then somebody wise comes along and say, hey, instead of fixing a key permanently to a user, why not make it changeable? So so that it's more secure. Let's call it a token. Let's call it an access token. In the end we have OAuth and OAuth 2. So OAuth 2 is nothing but using an access token, which we can expire for each user, depending on what security permissions we set. So those are the three common methods, and honestly, are typically well supported by most API gateways. So then the next compliance we need to do is actually authorization, making sure that the identified caller is allowed to access the API. Seemingly quite simple. Okay, see, I will say seemingly quite simple because the devil is always in the details. Because right now, when we deploy, for instance, you deploy in a project, well, that will be quite simple, right? Because you just need to modify the access control to model the structure of the organization. But when you try to extend, say, your API gateway to the whole of the agency, that gets a little complicated because there's more things to take care of in access control. Finally, we have the third one, content inspection, making sure that whatever you put inside the API is actually valid. So what does it mean? So let's try to, because this is a little complicated, so let's try to visualize this thing a little bit. So when content is transferred from the client to the server, there's two methods that we always use. One, HTTP GET, one HTTP POST. So in GET, what it means is that you actually put the data, the content that you want to transfer in a thing called query string. So this is an example. So the date is actually a query string. This is the data we are transfer across. Okay, quite simple. And in POST, the data is typically transferred over in what we call a message body. So if you zoom into the HTTP request, you will see this. Right, this is just a zoom in version of HTTP request. You'll see that actually there's a message body, and we put in data. Okay, in this case, data is user John equals to John, and postal code is 1234556. Of course, hey, isn't this a little simple? Yeah, of course, because there are many ways to represent the message body. You can have text, you can have JSON, you can have XML. So it depends on you. And the last place to put in content is actually at the header, what we call HTTP headers. Okay. So right now we know 3 places to put in content when you talk about transferring of data, right? Trying to payload. So a query string, headers, and also message body. So now, what do we need to do? So first thing we need to do is to inspect the query string. So this is an example of the inspection. Two things you need to inspect. One, the parameter name. So you want to make sure for this, okay, we want to make sure that in this example, right, the person ID is an allowed parameter name. The contact type is allowed parameter name. So second thing you want to do is to check that the values, okay, maybe the parameters name is allowed, but perhaps the values are not allowed. The 1, 2, 3 is not allowed. Maybe you're expecting ABC instead. Alpha characters only, not the numerical characters. So this one is something that you also can check if you are doing the inspection. Right? So query string, pretty straightforward. Then you also have headers. So similarly, headers you can also check whether the header key is allowed. Also, the value is also allowed. The names are also allowed and values are allowed. Right. Last but not least, we have the checking of the body content. This is an example of a JSON. So you can see that there are many key value pairs here, and all this we can actually inspect. Right. Knowing all these constraints, right? Knowing all these requirements coming from government tenders, right? So when we do our projects, we look around for suitable solutions. And the challenge for us is when we look at API gateways, right? The first two typically can comply. Many people can seemingly comply. But the third one, quite challenged for a lot of API gateways. Okay. That's where our architects then try to put together a technical solution. And when you look at it, right, if since when you look at it, actually at the start we look at it from a point project, single project basis. But after that, we think, hey, actually this is actually applicable across many projects. Then actually we turn to our product development guys and say, hey, why not we try to productize this and then capture this as a opportunity. And hence the product Acquire integration standard was actually released. So as expected, right, you will do the first two authentication, authorization pretty well. And of course, for content inspection, we will comply to all 3 requirements. Okay. At this point, you think, okay, great, you have this API gateway taken care of. But what about the SAML gateway that you talked about previously? You know, how do you actually authenticate with SingPass, CorpPass with this just an API gateway alone? So same thing, we turn to our technical team and say, hey, can you put in something else? And so actually you put in a SAML gateway and we group it under the identity service. And that adheres to the SingPass, CorpPass specification. So we have 2 modules within the Query Integration Center, the API gateway, the identity service. But that's not enough, really. When you look at the tender requirements, right, you realize that there are many other technical and also non-technical requirements. For instance, one of the many constraints where you have to think of is supporting of high availability. So our product by default always supports that, because in many government projects, you are looking for high availability, no single point of failure, able to support system availability of say 95, 99, 99.5, and so on and so forth. So these are all by default supported. Then, of course, some customers ask us, well, your product seems to work great for a single project, my project, but is it possible to extend it to other projects as well? Because the requirement for integration tier, the requirement for SingPass, CorpPass compliance is not unique to only my project. You know, in fact, it's kind of common to many projects. So the answer is yes, because by default, when we design this, it's actually designed to support multi-tenancy. So it's not just multi-user. Multi-tenancy means that we can support one or more projects in an organization. So this is one thing that we designed right from the start. Of course, interestingly, a lot of tender also ask for scalability and resilience. And we can do that because the product is designed not based on old monolithic architecture. So this is actually based on microservices. This is a great topic, and a lot of people choose that. We're going to not talk about it now extensively. The truth is, it does give you a lot of scalability because you can always spin up new microservices if you have heavier load. Okay, there's some things we need to do, but by default we already taken care of in our product. The other thing, really nice thing about microservices is it makes the whole solution a lot more resilient. What do I mean by that? Because the microservices are constantly being monitored. So when the microservice is not doing well, not responding, or hit a certain threshold, we can always restart the microservices so that and this is done without manual intervention. The traditional way always do it through manually, but this one we do it automatically, making it a lot more resilient. And one thing we are very proud to say that the product is we have a very strong commitment to government standards. Okay, this is not a product we built for generic usage. Okay, this is actually a product built very specific to government standards and compliances, and we have enhanced it along the way. So one enhancement that we want to do is to support OpenID Connect. So we heard that some of you may heard that SingPass CorpPass will be thinking of introducing OIDC as a new way of connection. Now it's SAML 2.0, but in future OIDC. So actually we are committed to support that, and we have actually roadmap in place already. Okay, finally, a lot of customers like ask me, okay, this is a great product, so you have services that are absolutely needed, but my environment is could be GDC, could be government private cloud, could be GCC, and GCC we have 3 variants. Can this product support it? Okay, the answer is yes, because again, our solution is actually containerized, so we can actually deploy across these environments, and we actually provide implementation to back it up. So unlike a lot of product companies who actually sell you a product and then hopefully some partners will actually implement it, we actually implement our own product in a few live projects already, and a few more work in progress. So this is not something that we have no experience with. And of course, the follow-up question to that is, well, Jibin, I know this is probably works great in government commercial cloud because well, it has a lot of it supports Dockers and stuff. But how about other environments that doesn't support it by default? All right. So that's where the answer to that is well, when we talk about product, we are wearing a product hat. But when we talk about these kind of extra things, we are also an SI, by the way. We have this EPVS then, remember? So we are also SI by nature. So we have actually made it work in other environments as well. So if you have any issue or challenges, please talk to us. You have our contact email, and then we can follow up with you. And by the way, there's a lot more to talk about because again, the technical requirements are a lot, but these are the things that we love to highlight. All right, at this point, would love to cut over to Praveen for a demo because I've talked for quite a while already. But maybe let me see whether anybody has actually asked me any questions where I can easily answer. Okay. Yeah. Somebody asked, why is there a giraffe? Well, yeah, this one I can't really answer. It's not very technical. So, okay, there is a question on technical, some challenges on integration. Okay, this is a great question. When doing what's the challenge on doing API integration for projects? From my experience, right, actually, technical challenge will be on the low side because we have a product and we know how to do it already. But the biggest challenge we find when doing, say, API integration will be actually human-to-human communication rather than machine-to-machine. Because why? Sometimes the external API interfaces that we agree at the start of the project, it changes along the way, but we are not informed. So when we try to do testing, right, it took a long time because we need to troubleshoot and figure out that actually changes were not well communicated. And since we talk about troubleshooting, right, just to add a little info. Well, the challenge for API troubleshooting is you are trying to troubleshoot something that is invisible. You're trying to make the invisible visible, so they can troubleshoot it. Traditionally done by logging, which we have audit logs. But of late, we are also trying to make it turn the logs into something a bit more useful, trying to put it in a dashboard so that the DevOps folks that can take a look at it and say, hey, this is where it breaks, and then so that they can troubleshoot a lot easier. With that, I think you can little see that in the demo as well. So maybe for the rest of the questions, we can take them during the Q&A session. All right, going to cut over to you, Praveen, for the demo.
I'll quickly present my screen. Okay, hope everyone is looking at my screen. So this is our EAC console product, where you can see that it is actually backed by login username passwords. It have admin rights. Right now I do have admin control, so I can actually log in with admin rights, so that I can show you guys more features and more functionalities lies within admin side. So I'm logging in. So EAC has been backed with, like Jinbin said, with two important features. One is SAML gateway, one is API gateway. So when you log in with the username password, you can quickly see the dashboard, which displays the count of APIs, number of projects, number of identity profiles, access tokens generated, all the security informations. The count of each one of them is displayed very simply here. And quickly to see on the left side, you can see a lot of menus. Because I have been logged in with admin controls, you can see more menus here. But EIC by default comes with the RBAC authorization controls. That means you can create your own users. You can ask the users to log in by their newly created credentials. Also, you can actually control the read-write access policies as well. So that means some users may be only required to access API gateway. Some users may be only need to access SAML gateway or OIDC or whatever it is. So all these things of read and write controls are all comes out of box with EAC. So quickly to go into the menu, because I logged in admin features, I can actually create more users with actually more permissions, whatever the accesses they need. So this is how it looks like at high level. And of course, once you log in actually with the user permissions, you can actually change their profile and change password, everything. And also there are admin settings. This is only required for administration purposes. And quickly, if you go into the API gateway, as Jinbin mentioned, it is quite multi-tenant concept, where actually you can create multiple projects, and actually you can create multiple organizations containing each organization with multiple projects. All these kind of combinations hierarchically you can relate here in terms of multi-tenancy. So if you go inside the APIs menu, actually you can see which organization you are going to work with. Like for example, if I say for this webinar, I have created seminar demo as one of the agency, you can consider that. And I have multiple APIs inside that agency with multiple projects or whatever it is. These APIs can talk to different systems, or it can talk to different internal systems or external systems, whatever it is, the way how you architect it or something like that. I want to quickly show you guys how we can create an API within the EAC, and how easy to create with, as if like if you are creating a basic API, how easy it is to go further, something like that. And later I will also be showing you how you can actually secure these APIs, and also how you can, what are the other features the EAC is gonna give you guys in terms of API gateway. And then quickly we jump into the SAML gateway and see how we can quickly configure it, and see how we can connect to the SAML gateway, and what will be the APIs used in the SAML gateway, all this stuff. So I'm right now going to create an API. As you can see, there are a lot of pop-up menu occurred with 4 tabs: core settings, advanced options, transform traffic, versioning. Don't worry, for simply creating an API, we can actually just go and create an API with a simple name. Right now, actually, I'm creating an API of name like my info. So just to give you some context within the webinar, I just created my info, but it's a demo one. So this name actually is required to create a API as a reference. But the listen part, this is important. This is where you will be accessing from the public side. Means whoever is going to call to the other system, you have to use this API for integrating with the other system. So then you also have to mention the other system listening points, where exactly this API has to be listened to or something like that. I have created a demo application for other systems, so I have created that and copied here. So quickly you can see down here, there is an authentication section. As Jinbin mentioned, by default, it provides a lot of security controls, industry standard security controls with respect to many other API gateways out in the market. We have auth token, basic auth, keyless, HMAC auth, 2.0 JWT, all this stuff. So for this demo purpose, let me just create without any authorization. That means I'm going keyless. That means there is no security for this API in accessing. I'm just quickly saving this API. As you can see, the API is saved successfully and the status is green. So then I'm going to test this API whether it's really working properly or not. So for that, I'm going to use the Postman tool. A Postman tool is something like a simulator open source tool which you can use it to test the APIs to communicate between two systems, something like that. So I'll bring the Postman tool quickly here. Okay, here it goes. I already configured an API which we created right now, which is myinfo-demo. So I'm just gonna have to try these and see if it is working properly or not. Okay, I sent the request right now. If you can see here, just now we got the response back 200 OK HTTP API with the status, and then you can see some basic information of the request what we said. Because this is my info kind of simulation demo, so I'm requesting a person basic details based on his NRIC and some other information. As you can see here, there are a lot of details going on like params, headers, and all this. Because this is a get HTTP API, we will not have any request body, right? So we will have only request parameters. As you can see, the information section gives you the request what you need for that particular person from my info system. Like I'm only requesting for name, email, home number, mobile number, but we are not looking for something else like sensitive information like salary, sex, or something like that. And also there are other details like client ID, system ID, which may be unique to the my info. If you go into the header section, we have some other details like request ID, authorization. So now the important thing which I want to show you guys is the content inspection, which Jinping mentioned earlier. The content inspection is one of the unique feature within our AIC API gateway. So which we can actually inspect the request details like query parameters, and then headers, and then request body if you have post and put something like that. So quickly, I want to try some query parameters inspection. Like you seen earlier, we have some query parameters and headers. So for that, you just have to go inside the already created API, edit that API. As you can see, I'm going to the third tab called transform traffic, and I'm just expanding the menu and going for validate headers and query string. I'm choosing that option, expand that menu. As you can see here, it's very clear section asking you to input the schema for validating. A schema is something like a rule engine, you can say. You are mentioning the rules, what type of rules to be executed for that API during the runtime. These rules are actually JSON kind of stuff, where these rules will be executed by API gateway whenever the request passes through that. So a simple rule will be something like this. So right now I'm going to configure the header rule, making sure that we are inspecting the headers for a particular request, saying that, as you can see here, I'm mentioning the properties like authorization, request ID. And for authorization, I'm also mentioning the data type, whether it can be string, integer, or Boolean, whether something like that. And request ID is kind of a unique identifier. It can have some pattern, like it shouldn't be a simple string or like a numeric value. It should have a certain particular pattern. So I'm also checking that pattern. I'm also mentioning that the rule is it should be mandatory, means authorization and request ID should be available in the request. So these are simple rules I created for header. And let's now save this information and see whether our content inspection works properly or not. So I'm clicking save. So now our API got saved with the new information. I'm quickly going to the Postman tool to verify that we are here. And as you can see, we already have request ID and authorization in the API. So let's go for a positive case by sending the request ID and authorization. So I'm clicking send here. As you can see, the information got successfully came back with 200 OK. But we will go for a negative case. Let's say that we are not sending authorization field. So I'm disabling in Postman tool. It's easy to do these kind of activities in Postman tool. That's why I choose this in first place for this webinar. I'm clicking send now without authorization, and let's see what is the result we got back. So you can see that it's a HTTP 422 unprocessable entity, which is a pretty standard API header API error information. Also, if you see the response message, it very clearly says missing required property authorization. See, this is how we can actually inspect the content for a particular thing which is going through this request. So I'm enabling it back and sending the information again. So we have got successful message. So something like that. Even you can go for a query parameters, which I shown you earlier. We have 3 query parameters: client ID, system ID, and information section. If you closely observe, the information section contains 4 parameters separated by a comma, asking for a particular information for that NRI's FIN number customer. What if we change this? What if the if some other person try to hack this one and change it and send more information like salary or something like that, which is not the intention to use here. But the content inspection will actually block these kind of stuff while if you have a proper configuration of rules put in EAC gateway. So let's see how query parameters can be configured quickly here. So I'm going back to the EAC again. As you can see, I'm quickly going to edit the section. Going back to transform traffic again. As you can see, I'm expanding it and see this section is empty for query string. I'll quickly configure the rules with some rules for each property. As you can see here, I'm mentioning that these are the query parameters I'm going to verify: client ID, system ID, and the information section. So I'm also telling that the information section requires further rules to be evaluated, like it only should have a name, email, home number, mobile number kind of data. It shouldn't have anything else. So this is a very simple way of configuring to rules in the rules side, where the JSON will be evaluated by API gateway at runtime. I'm also mentioning that these 3 parameters should be very mandatory sent in the request. So we'll quickly save these information and let's go proceed test once again how it looks like. Let me go back to the Postman. As you can see here, we have 3 parameters already configured for this API. So let's go for a positive case first. I'm clicking send. Oh, good. We got a 200 OK response. And let's quickly edit some of the informations, like sending the wrong information, like I said earlier. Let's put salary, comma CPF or something like that. I'm clicking send here. And we can see we got back a response with 422 unprocessable entity, saying that the data we are sending doesn't match the pattern we have asked for. So this is how we can simply evaluate any kind of sensitive information at API gateway itself, which really helpful to avoid all these kind of content inspection at network level, instead of going all the way to the backend and backend doing again more number of validations at system level, which is quite cumbersome to handle. So now I can again send a positive case, which we got 200. Okay. So far so good, right? So we are only dealing with get API. So even for the post, right, it is quite simple. The more important case in the post is the post contains request body. So by default, like I can say, EAC also helps you to support post, but we don't have a post API right now here. Let me quickly create a post API. So I just created like this my info post, and also I'm actually targeting the other system endpoint where it has to go through, and I'm also disabling the keys, and I'm actually going to the transform traffic section. As you can see here, validate JSON is one of the section which is mainly required for configuring the request body in case of the post put kind of methods. If you can see here right now, by default you're seeing get, right? You can go and choose the post here because our API is mainly for post, and I'm actually configuring the body especially here. So I'm only going to show you guys how a request body can be validated here. As you can see, the same kind of configuration we did for query parameters, but then one of the important feature I want to highlight is additional properties section, which is another important rule where a request body can only contain certain type of fields where we expect only client ID, system ID, and information fields to send to the other system. We don't want other fields to be sent through. So that kind of information should be blocked if they have additional information. So we'll be seeing it in live demo, don't worry. I'm quickly going and saving this information. Cool, we have created a new API with my info post. So now I'm going to bring you guys to the Postman tool so that you can see the demo there. So we have a post here. I already created the post with all the information readily available for you guys. As you can see, there is a my info post API with NRI's information going in the query in the path. And also this is a request body because we are using post. This is a JSON request having client ID, system ID and information, something like that. Also, if you can see here, we have configured with you PIN number, name, sex, race, data, but this time I changed the person basic information to be more realistic. So let's try quickly and see how we'll get the data back. I send the request. As you can see, we got the response back with PIN number, name, sex, nationality, something like that. So the main important thing I want to say is, what if there is an additional information here? Like, for example, you want to execute some kind of SQL injections or something like that. Of course, this may not be really possible, but in realistic world, we don't know what hacker can do, right? So let's say that I'm sending some kind of something like this, and if you click send, see, we are very clear on executing our content inspection. Our API gateway clearly executed our rule saying that additional property SQL is not allowed. A simple content rule engine which helps you to evaluate all these kind of malformed request bodies can be evaluated easily using content inspection. These are high level. These are high level what I want to show you guys. But quickly go back to the EAC. I want to show you additional stuff there. As you can see here, whatever the requests we have been filed so far, all these things are logged in the access log section. So that this is main important feature for debugging by DevOps guys or application programmer side, whoever it is. In the real world, during the production or UAT, you can use this tool to actually check whether the request has been gone through the other side or not, or if there is any other error. As you can see, recently we have filed the post request and it have successfully given back 422 error with content inspection issue, right? You see very clearly what is the request we are sending. We can see that, oh my gosh, the other system sent a invalid parameter here. That's why the content inspection kicked in and API gateway block our request. So this may help you guys in debugging a lot of information. So of course we have a filtration on this one. You can go for past 1 year or something like that data. And also we have traffic charts, which Jinbin mentioned earlier. This is quite beautiful presentation of traffic information going through the API gateway. You can actually choose hourly, daily, and recently what happened, and all this information we can actually capture. For example, if you see how many error breakdowns, like for example, you see a lot of 422 errors came back. So those kind of information we can see here. And also what are the APIs have been filed so far. See, right now we have created my info demo, my info post, also top IP addresses, from which IP address the users are trying to reach you, and users. All these sections will really give you a quite easy picture for naive users also. We don't have to be a technical background guys for this information. You can actually go for filtration concept for 1 year, 1 day, so much stuff. You can actually go for 2 days back, 3 days back, or whatever it is. See, then the graph will change accordingly. See, yesterday we have seen some of the requests going through, and then this, and also error breakdown will adjust accordingly. All these sections will adjust accordingly. This is a traffic charts, one of the important feature. Moreover, these are the high level sections of the API gateway. Then let's go quickly into the SAML gateway. Also, like this is also by default supports the multi-tenancy, so we don't have to configure for each individual stuff. So everything comes with one individual EAC console, helps you to configure multiple projects under each agency or multiple agencies under an organization, whatever it is. As you can see, there are a lot of configurations I have done so far. So to prove that multi-tenancy is possible, quickly I go into the SAML identifier providers. Let's quickly see a mock demo section. So we have configured CorpPass integration and SingPass integration here. Let's quickly see how it looks like. It has 3 important tabs. If you guys are known already how to integrate with SAML, maybe you might have known some of the fields here like e-service ID, gateway, partner ID. These 3 are important fields for handshaking with SingPass and CorpPass. So this is not new for government sector within Singapore, whoever connects to SingPass, CorpPass. And of course, we also configure certificates for signing and encryption. And also we have SingPass provider details, which helps in generating the metadata. You know, the metadata is an XML file. You need to exchange that XML file between application side to the SingPass side or CorpPass side, so that they both will be configured at one shot. Then SAML 2.0 protocol will be initiated. Of course, this is quite technical, but I don't want to go into deep detail, but I want to highlight you guys, this is all configurable. Everything, even if you are behind the proxy, you can actually configure the proxy settings here. Everything comes out of box. Once you have done the settings, it's quite unique to provide a security for these APIs also. Once you configure these, The SAML is actually configured by microservice architecture. So these are provided with the public APIs where application team will use these APIs to consume. So to show you guys how it looks like, these are the Swagger APIs I can show here. So we have two APIs to configure to SingPass and CorpPass, and those are backed by access tokens again, which is again Jinbin mentioned earlier. So API gateway out of box provide a lot of security features. So these are the access tokens how we can generate for particular SAML API and all this stuff. For example, if you can see, we have generated quite number of API tokens already. So some are active, some are inactive, and also you can mention a lot of expiry dates here. So to be mentioned, I don't want to go deeper into this one because it's quite a unique feature for SAML gateway. The only thing I have to highlight is everything is configurable. Once you've done the configuration here, application teams is just a REST call away for them to integrate with API with SingPass or CorpPass. That's all. It comes out of box with access logs information for debugging purpose. You can see all the traffics so far happened, like what are the information you can come back. I'm sorry, there may be not data available for me to show you guys, but there are a lot of information which you can help you to showcase whether it's success or failure and all this stuff. So this is at high level some of the things which I have to do, but of course they also have a lot of other features which I don't want to highlight here in this webinar, because API gateway comes with standard features which other vendors in the market also provide you. Like you have a traffic control at rate limiting, quota limiting. You can actually configure how many actually you need to rate the traffic per second, per minute, something like that. Also quota usages, and also you can reset the quotas, something like that. All these things are pretty standard, so I don't want to go in deeper. Also the security wrappers, like I mentioned, auth token and all this stuff. So the main thing which helps you to guys to look at is the traffic charts, and the configuration pretty simple. So this is what I want to show you guys in the demo section. Please feel free to reach to us if you have any other questions. Over to you, Jim. Thanks, guys.
All right. All right. Let's see. Okay, thanks, Praveen, for the demo. That's the live demo from Praveen. So if you're interested in our product and you again wish to share with your colleagues, please contact us. You can do it live again for your colleagues' benefit. Just a very quick recap of the benefits that we talked about for today's topic. If you work with EIC, then ourselves, we can give you a complete solution on API and also SingPass, CorpPass gateway solution. We have actually proven implementation already in Singapore. So whatever we have pitched just now it really works. It's just not talk only, and we are committed to future government standards, and already work on current and definitely committed to future government standards. So you have can future-proof your investments. With that, right? Would love to open the floor for any questions. So if you want, you can ask me anything. Let me quickly just go to the chat board and the chat window to see what questions do we have. Okay. Yeah. So we have our email address flash on the screen, so you can just take it down. Like what Amanda said earlier, we have a YouTube channel, so we have quite a lot of interesting videos there. Doing goofy stuff, and also doing fun stuff. And I think also a couple of videos on this face-to-face seminars that we've done previously. Yeah. Of course, you can always follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. So, okay, maybe just answer one or two questions that you have. The standard question that somebody asks will be always on the cost and the business model. Okay, not the kind of best platform to talk about cost right now. This is a public seminar. But yeah, that one I can only say that we're competitive. We can talk privately later. As for the business model, okay, our products has been on a subscription basis for quite a few years now. So that's that. So it's annual subscription. Then it's on the blocks of 16 cores. Well, typically that will be more than sufficient for any one project. All right. One more slightly technical question. We have a question on integration. Okay. Let's see. Well, how do other systems not developed by Aquaria work with EIC? Okay. Oh, that's also quite typical. Our app we build our apps and EIC, or we usually talk using REST APIs. So as long as the rest of the system also use REST APIs, so it doesn't matter what they are developed on, .NET, Python, or whatever. You talk APIs, REST APIs, we can talk. And typically there's a follow-up question on that because from other customers. What if you talk REST, but my systems are kind of legacy, so the endpoint of the API call is actually web services. So does it work as well? So the answer is yes, but we need to do a little bit of work at API gateway. We need to do a transformation from the XML or JSON that we receive from the REST call, transform it into the SOAP protocol, and then talk to the web service. So it's possible, but need to do a little bit of work. Okay. All right. There's a question on marketplace concept where the agencies can share the APIs. Currently, we don't have that marketplace concept where So, but maybe we can understand a little bit more on the requirement. Then probably we can talk offline and see where is the gap in it and address it.
Jean, can I answer that question?
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
It's actually monetization concept she is looking at. It's actually pretty standard in out of box for most of the API gateways which are there in the market. So our API gateway, we don't have that feature because we are more or less looking at the securing the integration in the cloud side. But yes, this feature can be possible if you have more requirements on that. And of course, the other question is share the APIs out to the public. It's already there for us. We can securely share our APIs and expose them to the outside people also. We did it for one of the live customer earlier, but it's not a monetization concept. It's not like a marketplace where you can go in and subscribe it and pay for what you use, something like that.
Okay. All right. I don't see any other further questions. Well, for those who are too shy, well, you can always drop us an email, then we can follow up with you. For those who have actually have sales reps in the organization already, you can talk to the Aquarius sales rep as well. We'll be happy to do a private session for you and your colleagues, or just for people in the organization. Or then if you have very specific requirements like your marketplace and some other requirements that you maybe would not like share now, talk to us privately offline. Then we can take this discussion further. If not, thanks for your time, and I hope that this session has been really fruitful for you. I wish you good health for the rest of the circuit breaker, and hope to meet up with you face to face in the near future. All right, thank you.